would you say your dad was made in heaven or manufactured on earth?
Without a doubt, made in heaven, bro. I feel like he was one of those like once in a lifetime abilities. You know, you could only name 5 or 6 players, I think, that were able to do some of the stuff that these guys could do. And I think my old man was pretty much high up that list. And I think one of my dad's favorite goals ever, I think it was Man United against Chelsea, but my dad's just running and this last player comes and just tries to break his legs. And my dad rode the tackle, went in and scored. And I think that was one of his favorite goals ever.
So Calum Best, the partier, to Calum Best today, how have you rebuilt your image?
In some ways, a lot of it is just getting older, mate. In some ways, a lot of it is just, growing up and just being more responsible. I think in my younger years, I was quite sad. I was quite angry about what I had gone through. As soon as I said, no, not for me, that is life, it's happened, what are you going to do about it? Simple as that.
Taking responsibility.
Literally, as soon as it wasn't like, oh yeah, but this happened. It's like, and I did that for a long time. I sat in that wallowing self-pity shit. And in fairness to me, I was fucked up because I lost my dad, but that could only last for so long. You have to pull yourself out of that. Otherwise that ends horribly. And no way am I saying I'm some fucking self-help guru. I just got back from Ibiza. I caned it for 3 days. I had a great fucking time. You know what I mean? But at the same time, that will be my little release. And then I'm back. I'm in the gym. I'm working. I've got my new site opening. I've got my new business opening in Dubai, all these things that I want to focus and I want to build to make sure I can provide for my mom, I can provide for myself, I can provide for my future family and friends, whatever it might be. So I've made a transition I'm very, very proud of. I think a big part, like I said, was age. You know what I mean? It was just getting older and realizing you can't do that shit anymore. You've got to give a shit. I've lived one hell of a life, brother, and that's not even me going hoorah. That's just me. When I really think about it, I have lived through all sorts of shit over the past however many years. And I am very happy of where it's led me, and I wouldn't take away from any of the lessons. And I've had hell and I've had good, and I wouldn't take away from any of it because it's made me here.
Right, welcome back to the podcast, Stephen Sully Study. I've got a wicked guest in front of me, Calum Best. Welcome to Woodbury House and welcome to the podcast. Thank you for your time, mate. I'm looking forward to it.
It's a pleasure, man. First and foremost, I know we've chat a few times on Instagram, but when you come to this Woodbury House, it is absolutely beautiful. So well done. I don't know much about street art. I mean, I know a bit, but upstairs, looking at some of the pieces you've got in right now, it is epic, brother.
That was going to be my first question. This is the first time walking into 29 Sackville Street, Woodbury House. The first impression on the artwork up on the wall is by Defa, which is actually... He's a guy, a pioneer from your neck of the woods, which is LA, California. His style, did it kind of resonate with you?
Yeah, I am. First of all, when you walk in, it's a pretty powerful setup you got going. And then straight away on the walls, those pieces, I could be wrong and I might get grief for this, but the style of that art I've seen before. I chased that style for a while because I wanted a tattoo. Don't have much space left now, but there was a few artists that I saw that did that kind of like, I swear it's some sort of Tibetan something somewhere. But now that I learned that artist, it's his, unique style from Los Angeles, I think it's pretty damn epic. I'll be looking into a few of these pieces. Doubt I can afford them, but who knows, mate? You know what I mean?
Well, we've got a few launches coming up. One in August on the 7th, and then we've got one in the 16th of October. Biggest artist we've ever signed. Very, very much looking forward to that. So if you're free, love to see you down there.
It's already in the diary.
Yeah, all good.
Good man.
Starting off with a question about football. Being the son of such a great footballer, what sort of pressure does that have on a kid like yourself or a man now?
There's a whole lot to say there. I was thinking about this yesterday. I play a lot of charity football at the moment, and I play most Sundays with this company called Celebrity Soccer. When I first got here, I felt the pressure quite hard, and it stopped me from playing. And then when I hit about 30, I got back into it. I mean, I started going to the gym again. I started taking care of myself, and I started playing football again. And now I absolutely love it, mate. I play Thursdays with this Italian lot. I play Sundays with my charity. I played yesterday at Ramsgate. I got this Sunday coming up at Havant and Waterloo. So I love the game. I love to play, but it's an odd one being the son of one of the most iconic players in the world. Because in my younger years, I felt the pressure. But when I got older, I was like, fuck it. I don't really give a shit. If I enjoy it and I love it, then I'm going to play it. I sometimes wish I'd felt that way when I was younger, because I took a long break. I took from about 20 till about 30 of not playing football because I felt the pressure here. And I actually chose the unhealthy life instead, which I'm sure, many people may know or may not know. But for a long time, I didn't take care of myself. I didn't do sport. I didn't train. I didn't eat well. I didn't do any of those things. I just drank and fucking partied. You know what I mean? I did it well, don't get me wrong, but I hit a point in my life where I said, okay, let's get back to the stuff that matters, that you enjoy, and that is kind of being healthy and happy with the occasional blowout here and there, you know?
Being from LA, California, do you call it football or soccer?
Oh, football all day long. You know, I sound like a Yank through and through. I grew up in my old man, just a little backstory here. So in 1979, Elton John took over a team called the LA Aztecs, the Los Angeles Aztecs, which then went on to be the LA Galaxy, I think. But Elton John took over the LA Aztecs. He brought over, you know, Pele, Beckenbauer, Cruyff, Best. He brought over all these iconic, legendary players in the game that were all towards the end of their career. And they had teams in the States like the San Diego Surf, the San Jose Earthquakes, the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. And my old man was at a team called the LA Aztecs. And that's where I was born. So my mom was English, my dad was Northern Irish, and I was born in California because my dad was playing at the time. Parents split. I was then raised there, hence why I sound like a Yank. But I mean, I'm Irish, you know, English, and my grandma was Scottish. So my blood is through and through, but my fucking accent says different. You know what I mean?
Your old man used to play for Man United, one of the best teams in the world. Not so great at the moment, but I'm pretty sure they'll come back.
Yeah.
Who do you support?
Man United.
Do you?
Without a doubt. But my old man played for a few teams that I... So it's a funny one because the core would be Man United, but he played at Fulham with Rodney Marsh. And when Mohammed Fayed was the chairman, he played at Hibs. He played at Bournemouth for 2 games. He went on to play at some random small little clubs as well. So his love was Man United. And I think once he left them, he never wanted to play at a team that was going to challenge that. But I always admire and respect, you know, any of the clubs that he went to play at. And I've got good relationships with most of them because I like to go and try to keep the legacy alive the best I can, you know?
Yeah. So look, I've listened to a podcast this morning with Tamer Hussein, a friend of mine as well. He's been on the podcast, and I really enjoyed that one. I think it was over Zoom because it was during lockdown, and I discovered a few things in there that I didn't know. Some stuff I did know, some stuff I didn't know. It sounded like, you know, your dad was there in pockets at the start, and then there was lots of period where you didn't see him. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, but how did that affect you mentally?
Yeah, at the time you don't figure it out. You just know that there's a missing family member, you know what I mean? And you don't know the difference. I mean, I'm a mama's boy through and through. Like, I love my mom to bits. She did a great job raising, you know, a kind of single boy. And I think my dad wanted to do well, but I think that it's a hard one to explain what addiction is to people if they don't know about it. Some people will say it's a choice for someone to pick up that bottle. Some people will say it's an illness, you know? I believe my old man was ill at some point. Like, obviously he wasn't in his younger years. He was the best footballer in the world. He was literally blew people's mind. And still to this day, brother, however many 20 years since he passed, and, you know, 50 years since he played, I'm still hearing about it every day. The black cab on the way over here, oi, bestie, greatest footballer that ever lived. I love it, right? But at the same time, I also have to think about the different role, and the role was dad, and dad unfortunately had a drink problem, and that was the only kind of, you know, as you can imagine, when he had me was the beginning of his drink problem. So my whole life was knowing him struggling with addiction and being an addict. So they weren't, you reach a point in your life, to get a little deep, as you know, as I lost my dad, you reach a point where all the bad stuff seems to filter away. You know, you have these memories, you have these things that could potentially tarnish you, but you don't want to sit in that anger. You don't want to sit in that sadness. You don't want to sit in that whatever it might be. You want to go, right, what were the good fucking things that I remember? I remember him taking me to United for my first time. I remember him coming over one time to where I grew up in California. There was like a group of English families, right? And they all, we were the football team in where we grew up. You know, we were teens, we were 12, 13, 14. But most of the players were all kids of English parents that had moved to America. Mm-hmm. And I remember one time, I think it was like, you know, early 90s, my dad was coming over to do some work, and he showed up at one of our training grounds, and all the dads were loving it. But my dad showed up in his like shell suit with his big beard. And I just remember being so proud of it. And little moments where he took me to a bar down, there's a beach, there's all these different beaches along the coast. And this one was called Hermosa Beach. And he had a bar there called Bestie's Bar. And I have memories of him like teaching me how to play pool and teaching me how to play darts. And now those are things that I absolutely love. And I think I love him because he taught them to me, you know? So sometimes you get a bit, damn it, why wasn't there more? But, you know, God, there's so many kids out there without parents in their life. Just strangely enough, mine was documented a lot over the years because my dad was who he was. And so was my mom, you know? So it's sometimes sad, but overall I relive all the good memories and I sing the praises and I love to hear people talk about it. But as a kid, sometimes you wish your dad wasn't an addict and you wish he was around more, bro. You know what I mean? But it is what it is, brother. That's how I look at it now.
I mean, I wasn't really into football so much younger. My choice of sport has always really been boxing, and football's like a second. I'll be lying if I could tell you I support Chelsea. I've only been once or twice the last 12 months. I'd be lying if I could tell you everything about Chelsea or even all the players. I like going occasionally, but they're my team of choice. I obviously knew your dad was incredible. How good was he really? So what I mean by that is you get to see people on the pitch, you get to see him at training grounds, but you as his son, there must have been moments where you're in the garden, you're at a park, you're somewhere, and he might pick up a ball and start doing some tricks or do it. How good was he behind the scenes?
Ooh, I wish I could say that those moments happened. What happened more was me studying every bit of footage that I could ever get my hands on. You know, his era was 1968. I wasn't even thought of, you know what I mean? But I know that since that moment, you know, since he was 15 in Belfast to when he passed, his life was pretty documented. So if you wanted to find footage of him, you'd find it. And I've seen pretty much everything you can imagine. But what blows my mind sometimes is that social media, Twitter, X, for example, there's diehard, and I love these people, but there's diehard George Best fans that will have footage that they've saved for the past 30, 40 years of stuff I've never seen before. So sometimes there's a guy on Instagram, on Twitter called Ben something or other, and he'll always message me and he'll show me this new picture, this new video, and I just think it's so fucking cool that these people have collected all this stuff of my dad. And I think that not only was he a brilliant footballer, but I think he was so liked in so many ways because he was the first to be a brilliant footballer, be a bit of a rebel, like a drink, and like women, right? And in that day, it wasn't very common. So I think all the lads were like, oh, Bestie's one of us, you know what I mean? And I think that's why people liked him so much, because he was just one of the lads. And he was a real shy Northern Irishman. You know, he kept himself to himself. You'd go to the bar, he'd want to sit in the bar, he'd not want to be distracted. But he also was a flamboyant fucker as well. He knew what he had. He had some great charm, some great charisma, some great wit. And most importantly, to the masses, he was one of the best talents the world's ever seen, you know. A lot of people hold him in the top 3 best footballers ever to live. And I think that's fucking incredible.
You do get exceptions to the rule every so often. So like going back to boxing, you'll see all of these athletes, all of these great stars who are completely professional, and you get someone like Ricky Hatton that comes along. Now I know he got beat by Pacquiao and Mayweather, who are better fighters than him, but he would balloon up in weight. He would be boozing. He would go to pubs and drink with the fans. He would probably doing other stuff as well. I know he's done that since he's retired.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think he's coming out of retirement in December.
I saw a post.
He's going to be fighting in Dubai.
Dubai, I saw that.
And he kind of ripped up the rule book, right? So, you know, he'll go out and booze, balloon up, and then suddenly get on this 8-week, 10-week camp and then strip that down and just absolutely destroy people by smashing them into the body. I think there was a Formula One driver as well, was a bit like that. It was a bit of a womanizer. I can't remember his name.
Senna.
Mate, I was thinking about an English guy, I think, who had long hair. But Senna, you are right. He was a bit of a, you know, a bit of a rebel almost. And read a few things about your dad, George Best. Maybe not going to training, maybe not turning
still showing up.
But then it gets onto a football pitch when it matters and knocks in the goals.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, how can you say anything when the end result, which you want, he's doing, but then he's not setting the good standards or making the good culture. It must be a hard thing for a manager to kind of, you know, lasso in.
Yeah. If you don't fall into line and follow the rules of a team. I know he loved a team, and I know he loved what he did at United and all these other places, but I think he was a rebellious man. You know what I mean? I think there was one game, God, who was it? Maybe Northampton or something like that. But he's missed training. He's gone on a bender and he's come in and then he's gone and scored, you know, 5 goals. And I remember the last goal, he throws his hand in the air. And I remember I think he told me, like, it was more of a, let me show you what I can do even if I don't follow the rules. But that can't be easy for a team to deal with or a manager to deal with. But at the end of the day, mate, I think that was part of his brilliance. It was this kind of rebellious, you know, I've got what nobody else has, and I'm gonna kind of live life how I want to. And I admire it in many ways, because it's not easy to break the mold. It's not easy to do what you want to do sometimes. But you know, the flip side is sometimes is that, what's the counter to that? The counter is you fucking drink too much, you follow a shit path. and this is really hard to explain to people, and I don't ever expect people to understand, but as a son, when you explain, yes, it's brilliant, the rebellion, yes, it's brilliant he liked to drink, yes, it's brilliant he liked women, but it cut his life short, you know? And that's not easy for a son to deal with or a daughter to deal with, but the masses sometimes don't understand that because they just want to experience the whole thing as a package. And I've learned to understand that when I didn't when I was younger. When I was younger, I was like, no, I've lost my dad, right? Why does nobody fucking understand this? But as I got older, I realized let the people and myself experience the whole package of what it was, although it was cut short way too early, you know?
I've heard people say in certain roles or in certain professions or being a sports star, music star, whatever, you're either made in heaven or you're manufactured on earth. So naturally, some people are good at sales because they're very, very good at conversating, having a chat, and communicating. And it's just natural.
Yeah.
And they're made in heaven. And some people need to really, really work on it and be manufactured on earth. Would you say your dad was made in heaven or manufactured on earth?
Without a doubt, made in heaven, bro. I feel like he was one of those like once in a lifetime abilities. You know, you could only name 5 or 6 players I think that were able to do some of the stuff that these guys could do, and I think my old man was pretty much high up that list because you looked at it and you went skinny, short, you know, like little twig legs, and he is just running circles around some of the biggest, baddest players in the world. And I remember one time seeing some video of a guy named Chopper Harris who played for Chelsea, who my old man told me that Chopper Harris was intentionally trying to break his legs. Because back then it was like, you know, you weren't, yeah, you were going for it. And I remember my old man knew that he was going for him. So my dad said he would get the ball on this side. He would take the ball over there looking for him just to try to beat him because he knew he wanted to break his legs, you know? And I think one of my dad's favorite goals ever once it was against this. Anybody wants to look this up? It's, I think it was Man United against Chelsea, but my dad's just running, and this last player comes and just tries to break his legs. And my dad rode the tackle, went in and scored, and I think that was one of his favorite goals ever.
I know being a bit kind of trying to get under the bonnet a bit more about maybe, you know, when your dad was a footballer, you know, very, very successful footballer, very famous, you know, pretty much, you know, a god within that world. Obviously, football now, the money is... I mean, it's more than life-changing. It's generational wealth. You know, you can, you know, some of the footballers now, I mean, I see these contracts that footballers are getting. And the mad thing is, they're now getting more money at the end of their career by going to Saudi and all these other places. And I think credit to them because football is a very, very short career. If you're lucky, you might get to 40 like Ronaldo, but most people are finished halfway. The money, did your dad earn enough money as a footballer?
No. I still to this day, people assume, this is a bit off topic, but I would majority times than not, guys would be assuming that I was born into some sort of wealth. And that's not to say that I'm not blessed being born into being Bestie's kid, because I am. It's been a fucking great life in many ways. There's been some heavily dark shit with it as well. But he didn't, in his day, I'm sure he made good money, but that was in the 60s, man. You can imagine how little money that was. To go through the rest of his life then, not playing football, he got some appearance fees, he got some, you know, partnership deals, but he never made any decent wedge. I think he went bankrupt a few times over his years, and at the end of his life, I remember he had this small little basement flat, albeit Chelsea. I'm not taking away from a great life that he lived, but I remember thinking, for what people think it was or thought it was, it's a lot less when it comes to the quality of life he was living. He was loved, he was adored, he could be bought a drink anywhere, he could get a meal anywhere, he could do anything he wanted, but at the same time, on a personal, you know, wealth and you know, knowing that you've got some shit to rely on, I don't think there was much for him left, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so he wasn't really so much into business outside of football?
No, not really.
He had a bar, didn't he, Besties?
Yeah, he had Bestie's Bar. He had 2, actually. He had one in Hermosa Beach, which I mentioned before, and then one in central London. I sometimes walk by it. It brings back some great memories. Outside, random story, but outside there's this little church, and I just look back and I go, I remember being like 7 or 8 years old, kicking the football around with him outside. There's great little pockets of moments I have in London that I have with my dad, you know what I mean? The memories I have of the places he took me. Most have to do with bars, but they were still some good times. Like there was the Feeney Arms off of Oakley Street in Chelsea.
Great pub.
But as a young kid, I remember walking in there going, what the hell do you want to drink in this place for? Like, it was dingy, you know what I mean? It was a shithole. But I remember he used to just love going in there and sitting with these kind of older guys, drinking his dry white wine and minding his business. And I used to just sit there with him and just be happy to be sitting with my old man, you know what I mean?
I heard from previous conversations that he didn't drink lager or beer because it made him feel a bit, pee and a bit bloated.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. In my own mind, I thought he would be a pint man.
Totally.
Yeah, because again, I associate a bit like Ricky Hatton. You see him with pints all the time. And I just had that in my own mind. But when I was listening to the story, it was
Dry white
shots
wine.
or it was dry white wine.
Yeah.
I heard a story as well that you came over to the table and you had this kind of tropical kind of cocktail and you pull it down and he said, if you're going to drink that, you can't drink with me.
It was a real Northern Irish old school, don't embarrass me, son. You better go put that pina colada to the side. I was mortified. I think I was like 15, first time I ever drank with my dad. I was so excited. And then I was like, oh shit, that didn't work out well. But he was like that. He was very kind of old school. That generation were a different breed, you know what I mean? There was no kind of showing of emotion. There was no kind of, it was this way and that's the only way. It was your whiskey and it was a shut the fuck up, you know? And I understand it because they didn't know any different, but it was a different time back then. But that's, I learned a lot of those things early on from him about how to act and how not to act, you know?
Yeah, I heard as well, and I wanted to sort of get it from you here today. It's a bit of a paradox, right? Because part of you wanted to get to know your dad really well. So you spoke about football, you spoke about women, and you had a drink. But you also realised that if you had a drink, then that would trigger off his maybe addiction and then just disappear for a few weeks or maybe a month. But it must have been a hard two worlds to live in, right? You want to see your dad, but the way you're going to see him is by having a booze. How difficult was that to kind of balance?
At the time, you don't really, at the time, just on a personal, I'd be grateful for the moment. I wouldn't think to myself, if we have these drinks together, what happens next? You'd only learn afterwards that it's a bad idea to have those drinks with someone who's an addict, you know? But as a son, you're just happy to spend the time. So I used to sit in the pub and just be happy to be in the pub with my dad. Or, you know, one day I remember I got a phone call from him and he never really called. It was just I'd either... Oh, God, there's a lot to explain. But one time, for example, I got a call. What was it back then? An old flip phone or one of the old fucking Nokia 8800s. And bestie, where are you? Meet me at PJ's on Fulham Road. And I'm like, yes, love that. I'll be right there. So I went to go meet him and he's on the brandy. And when he was on the brandy, I knew he was going heavy. Like I knew how it would end. But I'm so happy to be hanging out with my dad that I'm like, fuck it. So I'll drink with him. So we went to this place called Pucci's Pizza. And Pucci's Pizza was this place on the King's Road. And I remember being like this young teenager, if not younger, and so excited to go in this place because it was filled with beautiful girls. It was like the guy who owned it, his name was Pucci. He's this old school Italian kind of mafia guy. And small place, really old school Italian decorated. And I used to go behind the pizza place and spin the dough and have a beard as a teenager and look around and there'd be all these beautiful models sitting around. My old man would just sit at the head table with Pucci. And I remember just thinking, this is fucking cool. You know, it was a great life. But at the same time, it was just all these guys were drinking just all day, every day, day in, day out. Can't be healthy, can't be good for you, but that's what they like to do. That's how they, whether it be, I guess, escaped or whether they just wanted to live their life. And no one can fault it, but again, as a kid, it's a tricky one to navigate, you know? But I took any moment I could with my old man, dude, because I knew that he was ill and I knew that he was an addict, and I just was like, I have to do what I can. One thing I learned about addiction and trying to deal with somebody that was going through it is you can't talk them out of it yourself. It's up to that person to figure it out, which is not easy for that person to figure out. If they're already that deep into addiction, you can't come along and say, stop drinking, because they're going to go do one, you know? I'm going to go do what I want to do to get by, which is drinking, because most people that are addicts, they have to do whatever their drink or drug, whatever it might be. That's what they need to do to cope. So, you know, if I battled against it, I wouldn't get much love. So sometimes you just kind of flowed with it. And most times it wouldn't end well. But I have some great memories, but also some fucking tragic ones, mate. But I smile about it now because I've learned, you know, at 44, I've learned how to cope with it in different ways. And that is my coping, is to say, what were the brilliant times? What were the good times? Yeah, I'll store the tragic bad shit, but I'll let the good ones come over everything because I want to have a good I don't want to sit in that shit anymore, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
It's a lot that it's not for a viewer. Sorry to cut you off, but for a viewer to listen that hasn't dealt with something like addiction, that just sounds like a bunch of waffle when really there's a lot of depth into trying to navigate addiction with a parent. It's fucking hard work, you know?
I bet it is.
Yeah.
I bet it is. Um, there's a few things there. So like, yeah, I mean, you mentioned about you saw a pattern where he might disappear. I mean, I don't even know if you know this, but was he when it disappeared? Is he going party to party, pub to pub, or is it a recluse in his house and just drinking?
It's a good question, but I would imagine it would be chasing the drink, you know? I would imagine it would be him, you know, how could I explain? There's random times where he would just go on the missing list and you would assume that he's just going from pub to pub, you know? I never know. He never shared with me, but from people's stories and people's hearsay, he was at that place and he was at the Rat and Parrot, then the Dog and Hound, then the fucking something else, you know? And you're like, fair play, because he'd go to the places, he'd play pool, he'd meet the people, he'd have a good time. I remember one time there was this whole press campaign about if you see George, don't give him a drink. And I just remember thinking, Jesus, how crazy is that? That there's this UK national campaign of if you, in some ways you respect it because they're like, let's save this kind of national hero. But there's sometimes at the same time, it was almost like, God, man, that's fucked up. That they're like, you know, if you see this man out, don't give him a drink. You know what I mean? Like Jesus. But, you know, he was a notorious drinking womanizer. And I love that shit. I have a smile on my face and I'm proud of so much of it. But it's also some sad times because the old man died way too young, you know?
And look, I want to talk obviously more about your profile, where you head in, the businesses, etc. But I am interested in the backstory, and your dad was a massive part of your backstory.
And mate, I expect it all day long.
Yeah.
And I'm happy doing it, you know?
I didn't know, but your dad, George Best, died in your arms. And that was, I told you this morning, I was on the way to my son's school and I thought, yeah, I'll put another podcast on, listen to you, just get a bit more insight. I'm just interested in the story.
Yeah.
And I heard that part, and my son is 6. And he's not saying nothing, but it's just me and him in the car, and he's sitting directly behind me. And I'm looking in the rear view mirror, and I'm thinking, certain things are probably registering with him now. Like because he does sometimes. I'll play something. A few days later, he'll say something to me, which is reference to what we were listening to, and I wasn't thinking he was listening. I think, oh, that's heavy, and that really. First thing in the morning, I thought I needed a coffee. The moment I heard that, I was awake, and I was like, Jesus, that heavy. I looked at him and I thought, I cannot have something like that happen in my life. How was that when your dad died in your arms?
As you can imagine, I mean, there was this. God, mate, I could literally talk about this stuff for years because there's so much that happened through these last years of troubled times. But I'll give you just a little bit of Cromwell Hospital, and there's a few moments. There's one where he's gone in for a liver transplant, and he got a lot of grief for that because some people were talking about being on a list. I don't know much about this, so I don't want to. I don't want to, piss anybody off, but he needed one and he got one. And I think there was a lot of grief given because there was a lot of people that might have been waiting longer, which I respect and I understand, right? For whatever reason it might be, he got his. And I remember him kind of coming out of his surgery and looking at me with a new look, and I felt it because all these years I'd tried to build this relationship, and he was like, it's going to be different now. In short, it wasn't different, right? There was moments of difference, but he went back to drinking again, as it was very well documented. But there was a moment there where I thought this hospital visit could turn good. It didn't. There was another moment. This is just a random story, but things that I held on to. He's in the hospital and he's in there because he's bad, mate. He's jaundice. He's looking really unwell, and he wasn't allowed certain foods. And I was so excited that he was like, Bessie. I was like, yeah. He's like, can you go get me some wine gums? Like little things that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. A little moment of my dad asking me to break the rules and go get some wine gums. I'm like, yeah, no problem. Go out to the shop, bring him back some wine gums. Little moments like that where I felt to him it might mean nothing. To me, it was a bonding moment, right? Which is fucking crazy, but. And then finally, brother, he got brought in to the Cromwell, and he was in and out of that emergency room. And I remember this emergency room so well. I remember the beeping of the machines. I remember the silence of it sometimes. I remember the lighting of it at nighttime. And I was in and out of this room for months, man. And I would leave the hospital. I would have to come back 6 hours later. I'd leave the hospital. I'd have to come back a day later. Sometimes I would have a room given to me upstairs and I'd spend the night. But anyway, without telling the whole thing, at one point, I was exhausted, mate. I've been in and out of this hospital for months. And they said, there's a free room for you to go have a nap. I'd been awake for hours and hours, days even, I think. And so I went upstairs to have this nap in this little hospital bed. And I get waken up by my dad's agent, Phil, and some of the family members. And they're like, it's gotten bad now. Yeah. So like I've come downstairs and I just remember I'm like so ill in my own head because I'm so stressed and so tired and my dad's so sick and I'm really, really struggling with the whole thing, as you would. But we get to this, moment where we're in there and the professor was like, there's not anything else more we can do here. Like he's now on life support and it either, we keep him there and there's no progress or it kind of comes to an end. Anyway, as you can imagine, like I'm 24, 25 and he's in his hospital bed and I just like an absolute child, mate. I got up onto this bed with him, and I nuzzled myself in and I put his hand over my shoulder and I just kind of laid there, man, just like, you don't realize the ramifications for the rest of your life. You're just in that moment and that moment is tragic and you're so tired and you're so exhausted. And I got to be honest, there's moments where you're like, when is this going to end? Like, when is this hell of unknowing going to end? And in some ways you're like, is it going to end now? Can I find some peace now? And that's honestly what I felt at one point. I felt, oh my God, is there going to be some peace where I don't have to worry about this? But also there's a, please, Dad, please do not die. We have more things to do. And I lied there and I put his hand over my shoulder and he passed away, man. And I just remember and I didn't want to move. I just wanted to lie there with him forever. And I remember, just being a child, but an adult, like nuzzled in.
Yeah.
And my dad had passed and it was fucking hell, mate. It was hell. And I remember coming outside. I won't go into the details, but he passed away. And I remember coming outside, and I don't know if you knew, but the press had been camped out outside the hospital for months, yeah? Like worldwide press. All the vans light up, all the satellites, all the lights. I used to have to get snuck in the back door, down through the kitchen, up through the emergency exit. I remember just having to come out and having to say a few words and just being so fucking exhausted. And I look at myself, sometimes, I'm 44 now, right? You would imagine at 24 you'd be healthier and happier than you would be at 44. I don't know why, but that's how you'd picture it. Young, healthy lad. I look at myself then like this traumatized, lost fucking kid compared to now of understanding it a bit more and healthier, happier, taking care of myself. Luckily, with age, I've learned a few things. Probably not enough, but it's crazy sometimes to think that I'm glad that although the path went bad for a while, it's gotten better. And now I can tell that story, with pride because I'm proud of who he was, with understanding because I understand what addiction is now, understanding because I understand what he went through and I actually feel for him. There's a brilliance to it because there's this iconic, legendary status that he left behind that hasn't seemed to go anywhere, which is amazing. But there's also, an understanding of addiction if you've lived in it and you want to know what it's about. And off the back of something like that has opened my eyes up to supporting kids that have gone through it as well. And I don't know if you know that as well. I don't know, I'm rambling on, but there's a charity called NACOA, National Association of Children of Alcoholics, that I found because of my losing my dad, that now is probably one of the most important things in my life. So there's good and there's bad. The bad is I lost my dad. The good is off of it, I've found some brilliant purpose that comes with it. There's a lot there, I know, bro. But there's a lot to share on that story.
Because most people, when they lose a friend, lose a loved one, lose a family member, they are your typical person, and it's always going to be horrible. It's always going to be sad, and people are going to deal with it in all different types of ways. But when you're from a famous family and from a famous footballer, which is one of the world's most popular sports, and they're known everywhere they go, and you're the son of that, it, like the press, the media, the reporters, it must really make it 10 times exaggerated,
Yeah.
right? How was it trying to deal with the press?
I mean, it.
Must be intrusive.
Yeah, it was always, God, I got stories on stories about how intrusive the press got. But in that time, it was hell. I remember, like, we used to be begging them to leave us alone, but we also knew that they wanted to document it. We also knew that there was interest. We also knew that he had a strong fan base that people wanted to know. So trying to navigate what it was. But overall, you're thinking, fucking hell, we're in hospital. He's in his deathbed. Can everyone fuck off? Really? But it wasn't the case. And the press, and some people will say, "Oh, press helped people get to fame and all that stuff." His ability did. Look, they helped me get to some sort of limelight as well because, although they gave me a lot of shit for many, many years, they also gave some goodness. So, I can't hate on them for what they wanted to document. But on that note, I'll tell you a little backstory. I don't know if you heard of a thing called the Levinson Inquiry, but the Levinson Inquiry was when they tapped the phones. And that, in some ways, I got to be careful because there was some legal stuff I dealt with, but there was a moment where companies or the newspaper like the News of the World, which was probably the worst at the time, they were tapping celebrities' phones and emails and all that shit. So they did mine and they did my dad's as well. And I remember thinking, God, they tapped the phone of mine and my dad's and our emails through some of the darkest times that me and him were going through because he was really, really ill. But that's what the press did back then. They did shit with no remorse and no worry about what that person's dealing with as long as they could tell the story. But yeah, there was a phone hacking scandal. I actually sued him and I won in the end, so it worked out all right. But you sometimes think, Jesus Christ, these guys got away with murder.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're brutal. They're there to sell stories, papers, and at the end of the day, they're a business to make revenue. And they put a narrative around things. I mean, I was going to raise this, but I remember reading some comments about your dad obviously had the liver transplant. And then obviously he ended up dying from the same thing that caused the liver failure. And then you'll see people online going, he's taking the piss there because he was given a second chance and he's kind of ignored it. And some people won't understand the addiction, and like you say, they say it's his choice and stuff, and there is that side of it. And the other side is he just wasn't in control in the end, and it must be a tough thing for you to actually read being the son.
Yeah. Well, I would intentionally not back then, and now I don't care. Like, you reach a point where you're like, I have my opinion on it, and that whatever mine is what matters. You know what I mean? I'm open to other opinions. I'm open to other stuff, but it's so gone now and it's so past that, brother, I try intentionally to just be all the good stuff. You know what I mean? It's all about going to United and support and being there as a representative the best I can. Going to Fulham, representing my old man the best I can. Fucking hell, I've represented him horribly for many years. I went down a path of drinking drugs and fucking up for a long time, but that was my path to figure out who I was. I had a great time doing it. I had some great stories along the way. It was funny, before we came here, I was thinking about what kind of podcast this was and what kind of stories I could tell. And I'm like, do I tell stories about the Playboy Mansion? What do we do? But I always know, majority times than not, and this isn't in being funny, but there's going to be a lot of conversation about my old man. And I've learned to be used to it, and I've learned to be proud of it as well,
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, being a son of George Best, it must open up doors.
Yeah.
And then maybe because of what happened, it will close some doors, and it just sort of swings and roundabouts. On the note of, his journey to addiction, there obviously, when he passed, it sounds like to me that triggered your own kind of journey into that world. How dark did it get for you?
Yeah, pretty bad, brother. Like, when he passed away, I literally remember saying, I know I've sworn a lot here, but I remember saying, fuck the world. I remember saying, screw everybody, yeah? And I didn't give a shit anymore. I just went, I've lost the biggest hope in my life, so fuck everything. So I drank, and I sniffed, and I partied. And you know what, mate? I had some great times doing it, but at the same time, I tarnished myself pretty bad. I was unhealthy. I was unhappy. I went bankrupt at 30. My reputation was horrible. I got slated by the press every single day. I remember at one point, every single day they were writing horrible things about me. And I reached this point. So I lost my dad when I was 25, and I caned it till I was about 30, went bankrupt at 30. And then I actually realized, no, stop here. Let's start doing better. Started playing football again, started going to the gym, started eating better again, started to learn about different things that would work in the self-help sector. And from that moment onwards, it's been an upwards, like, I still enjoy myself. I can still go to Ibiza and cane it. I still have a great time in many ways, but my life is healthier, happier, is taking care of myself, respecting other people around me, respecting what I can do to support them, my charity work, all these different things. But brother, from one point, in short, from a teenager till my dad passed, I was well-mannered and respectful, but rebellious. I enjoyed myself. I partied. I dabbled in drugs. I dabbled in drink. I liked women, right? Lost my dad. This shit went from having a bit of fun to horrendously overboard, right? It was every single night I was drinking, every single day I was sniffing, every single whatever for a long, long time. And I reached a real point of unhappiness. And that was, I remember sitting with my mom and telling my mom I didn't think I was going to be alive when I was 30, and her crying, and just real low point in my personal life. And I said, that's enough. Let's fix it. I won't go into too much detail over those years. There, as I said, there was some great fun memories, but also some really dark, tragic shit. And then from then onwards, it's about bettering. What do I do? What do I want to do with myself? I want to be a businessman. I want to support kids that went through the same shit as me. And now, as you can tell, well, I don't know if you can tell, but I feel the healthiest and happiest and most confident I've ever been in my life, you know? And you would hope that is what happened as you get older, but luckily for me, that's what's happened.
I think you referenced on another interview that you had a chance to become a professional footballer, but you end up becoming a professional partier. And you were very, very known in that scene. And I guess part of the following you got today is because, again, the kind of rebel person that the media writes about, then you're on TV and you make appearances, there are people who are going to really, really find that really interesting and want to get around you. It's a bit of a blessing, and then it can also be a curse. You've been on this rebuilding mission then to develop your own profile. I know you mentioned you've got a few things going on, like the restaurant in, I think it's over in Chelsea Way, the Mexican.
Kings Road,
what else are you getting up to as far as business is concerned?
Well, you know, what I mentioned there about hitting this kind of ultimate low point, I just started bettering myself, and it came to do with, you know, different this might some people will understand it, some people won't, but in order to better yourself, you've got to understand what's going on. So I started to look into things that were in this well-being sector, you know, whether it be from fucking, you know, the cliche shit of journaling and meditation and all these different things, but I tried all of it. I dabbled in all of it, saw some people, spoke to some people, did all these things, but the main things that mattered and that worked the most was gym. It was training, bro. It was getting back into football, and it was getting into the gym. Those two things were the things that kept me sane. I started to eat better. I started to, as silly as it might sound, I was drinking for 10 years straight, easy. I started to juice every day. I started to put nice stuff in my body. I started to take care of myself and grow up, you know, simple as that. I started to get older and want to do better for myself, and in return, support the people around me. And off the back of that, over these years, the past, you know, I'm 44 now, so the past 14 years, I've dabbled in all sorts of business. I tried, you know, a jewelry business. I did a self-help journal business. I wrote a book. I did all these things. Some have hit, some have flopped completely, but I've learned different tools along the way. And I think that I stand in a really good position now where at this point, all these people I've met over the years, because I've been around for a long, long time. I've been in entertainment for 23 years, and I've been in London since I was 21. And all these people I've met over the years that have been, and sorry, the following as well that you were talking about, a lot of these people have been on this journey with me, of me when I was fucking all-time low to me now, you know, at feeling and looking and doing the best I've ever done. They've seen this journey, and anybody I've known along the way that's in business or successful, a lot of them say to me, we were waiting for you to reach a point for now us to do something with you. And I found that's what it's been for the past few years. My black book is going, good on you for turning the corner and reaching this point. What can we do? Restaurant popped up. I had an opportunity. I raised X amount of money. We launched this restaurant, me and my business partners, on Kings Road, called Ixchel. Beautiful Mexican restaurant, and it's killing it. Now we're going to launch it, you know, internationally. I went and became chairman of a women's football team. That one, for example, you know, I feel because of the name, I could go and do things at different football clubs. I mean, I'm not a fucking coach, I'm not a manager, but there's something to be done. If I suppose the name alone, I feel, could get me somewhere with it. But I'm like, no, let me do something completely off-piste. 5 years ago, I took over a grassroots tier 6, or it was tier 7 at the time, which is the lowest of the women's pyramid, took over this team, and it's become one of my biggest passion projects. No financial return, just a love of what I do. And I've grown this team. We've made a documentary. We've grown this really cool, incredible, credible club at Dorking Wanderers. So I've got the football team. I've got the restaurant. I've got this new place I'm opening in Soho. I've got shares in multiple businesses. I'm enjoying what it is, because I found, just to dabble again, I could talk a lot about this stuff, but, you know, I sometimes wish I'd followed the path of a footballer. Doubt I would have been good enough anyway, you know, but I love it, and I played half decent, right? Didn't follow that. So I thought, what could I do to follow in my dad's footsteps? I'll fucking drink, right? And I drank a lot, and I did it really, really well as well. That was my reputation for a long time. And then finally I thought, okay, what is it I want to do? I don't have a specific passion for any one particular thing. So let me just spread the wings and see what it is. Let me try multiple different businesses, put people together, introduce Bob to Tom and all these people. I feel I'm good with people. So I'll put people together and see what it creates. And now it's created some really fucking brilliant opportunities for me, you know?
I interviewed another Best before.
Really?
Alfie Best.
Oh, yeah.
Who has the Wildcrest Park homes. I've actually interviewed him twice, one on his site and one in that very seat.
Nice. I like Alfie a lot.
And then I interviewed his son, because again, a bit like this psychology, you know, he's not a famous footballer, but as far as businessman and social media, and yeah, he's on TV and stuff because he's a rags to riches, born on the side of the road, a gypsy, and now he's a flourishing businessman who lives in Monaco. To be the son of someone like that, it must be quite tough, because if you go into the business, then the social media following or the media will go, the only reason why you made it is because your dad gave you the business. And if you try and set up your own business and
doesn't do as well,
it doesn't do as well, you just go, look,
you're
at
a
him.
failure.
You're a failure.
Yeah,
So it's a tough thing. And I think Alfie Best Jr. had his moments as well, naturally as a young man, that sort of, you know, maybe at certain times didn't really know which directions to go down and maybe got a little bit lost himself. And he said this really famous, not famous quote, but a quote that stuck in my mind, and it makes so much sense, that his dad said to him, "The devil will make work of idle hands." And he said, if you're not doing something, the devil will get into your brain and it will take over.
Totally.
So the drink, the drugs, being around the wrong people, you become a product of your environment. You become the closest people around you. If you've got wicked people around you, driven people, disciplined people, you become like that. But if you go around people that are doing the wrong things to their self and to the environment and their peer group, you end up like that. So my question is, like, I understand that triggered this mental challenges, and then obviously that led to the drinking drugs to cope with it all, and a bit of escapism. But most people at 24, 25 to 30, you're in like normal sort of jobs, careers, and on a path. Do you think that's what happened to you? The devil started to make work of idle hands?
Yeah, I think that my situation was unique because I lost my dad. You know, I think that if someone's dealt with that, then they'll understand this. And I think that, you know, sometimes I think, why did I choose to go and get pissed and escape this stuff? But that was just my coping mechanism at the time.
And there was no sort of job, or you were just out and about?
I was really lucky. I've never, you know, God, mate, this is, I sometimes think about the viewer. I sometimes have to stop myself from doing that. But I am very blessed to be my dad's son and have opportunities. But at the same time, as you said, I have to work double hard to prove myself in many ways. But I also am blessed that I've never, for example, I mean, my first job, I was a pizza delivery guy. You know what I mean? I delivered pizzas for 2 years from when I was 15 to 17. And then all of a sudden I got picked up to do some commercial, and I probably, you know, got really lucky because I, you know, was Bestie's kid and someone wanted to hire me for a Tommy Hilfiger commercial. And off the back of that, I ended up getting these really cool jobs all over the world, and it was fucking cool. And I lived a great one, but I never had a focus on. So I just thought, okay, I had money coming in from jobs here and there. I never had money from my old man. My old man died bankrupt. You know what I mean? Like, he died bankrupt. And there's an even deeper, darker story about, and I got to be careful with this one because there's could be lawsuits around it. But when my old man passed, what he had left, he had a 1968 trophy, European Cup trophy. He had all these different bits. I won't get into the details, but when he passed, it didn't go to me. It went to his sister. Respectfully, and we might have to look at legals before we put that out, but she did what she needed to do with it, and I saw nothing. So when it comes down to it, all I've got was the name, which I'm very proud of, but it fucking did my head in for years that people assumed I was born into this thing of money and wealth and didn't have to work a day in my life, when really it's been a struggle to try to continually even now, like, want to take care of my mom, want to provide a life for myself. Luckily, I figured it out. But in my younger years, man, I was couch surfing. During these times that I was talking about, I was couch surfing, didn't have a fucking pot to piss in, had no money, but because who I was, I knew I could go to that nightclub and fucking drink for free and snort for free. And that's what I did for like 7 years.
And obviously what comes out with that is the women
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at 44, because I remember when you were speaking to Tama 2020, you were talking about having maybe you were thinking ahead, and you said something along the lines of, I think I'll be a really, really good dad. And that wasn't in an arrogant way. I think you've just gone through this mission. And I agree with it. The way you came across in that interview, I resonated with it. But at 44, no sign of like settling down and having a kid, and maybe doing the what most people do, have a house, have a wife, 2.2 kids and a cat and a
white
dog.
picket fence and shit.
Yeah.
It's on my mind, brother. I've stopped putting that pressure on myself. Everybody's got their own journey, and I'm not gonna follow any sort of ways or conditioning. I honestly believe my path is what it is, and when the time's right, the time's right. For a long time, God, this is a bit deep, but I feel like a certain generations we're led to believe it has to be a certain way.
Yeah.
When we make our own fucking way, it is however we want to make it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I believe that whatever my path is the way it's supposed to be. At the moment, it's not a wife, it's not a kid, it's business focused. For years, it was trying to pull my shit together. For years before that, it was trying to, whatever it might be. But everybody's journey is different. And when my time is right, my time is right. One thing I won't do is push it, pressure it, do it just to do it. I will do it when I believe it's right for me.
Yeah. You can't force anything in life.
Yeah.
Most,
especially love and children. I don't want to just do it to do it. I want to make sure it feels right.
You see people in the public eye and even in the private landscape, and I know people that sort of rush into certain things. I even had a conversation with somebody earlier, and he secretly got married to a lady he was with for 12 years, and then shortly after they got divorced. And I'm like, mate, what happened? Maybe it was a bit too forced, because I don't know this, but I'm assuming that they might have put a pressure on themselves to do the thing. But yeah, I thought maybe now. But then also, I think about celebrities, quote unquote, and coming from successful families or coming from a famous footballer, etc. There are agendas that people will have. So someone might approach you with a business idea, but they're trying to leverage you to get to this person, or they're trying to get in front of this audience, and they might be just trying to use you. So I guess you need to be, you're probably aware of this. But then also the women, right? That, how can you, there might be a really, really good looking woman, but is there an agenda there? Is there like an agenda there? They're trying to get to you because of your profile, you're following, you're, model and stuff, and your dad. So it must be quite a hard landscape to navigate.
I mean, mate, the honest answer is, in my younger years, I'd have been like, yeah, cool, whatever. You know what I mean? It was like, cool, if you're interested because of that, you're interested. I didn't really give a shit back then. Don't get me wrong when I say that. I've always been morally sound. I've always been well-mannered. I just, at one point, didn't give a fuck about things, When really, now, I am fucking, I'm traveled the world. I'm very self-aware. I know who's in it for what reason. And mate, at the end of the day, if someone says to me, your profile will do this business better, I'm going to go, let's do this shit then. Let's utilize what I have as a strength. Why not? As long as I'm aware of it, as long as no one's taking the piss. And if they are, I usually feel like I'm going to know it. You know what I mean? I've been around for a long time. I'm very aware of my surroundings, of people, of their intentions, because I've been fucked so many times in the past.
Intuition, right?
Completely, brother. And respectfully, some people don't care. Some people aren't bothered, but I'm a go-getter. I have goals. I'm driven. I do shit every day to better myself and better my surroundings. I know what I want. I know how I'm going to get it. And I feel like if I'm going to do business or if I'm going to date, I'm going to know what that person wants as well, because I'm at that point in my life.
Yeah, and I know people chuck around these certain sayings and quotes on social media, and some of it has lost its power, but the energy, you can, I deal with collectors and investors all the time, and yes, you do get a bit of a sensation about someone's energy and their intention and who they are and stuff. I don't get it right all the time, but there is a lot of time where you listen to that gut and you're like, yeah, my gut was leading me to that outcome, or was telling me not to go into that to that meeting today because the energy didn't feel right. And I'm guessing, being a little ahead in life than me and traveling the world and experiencing what you've experienced, you've probably got a better intuition than me.
Well, and you've got a great one. You know it. Good example of us. When I walked in here, great vibe, great straight away, beautiful place you got here. You told me stories about your thing, and you're going, "Oh, this is going to be a good conversation." You know when it's not going to be a good conversation, mate. You know what I mean. You know yourself, as do I, and I'm sure many people do. Some people don't care about that shit, and this might not be a relevant podcast for them. But you know when the gut is right. You know when the energy's right. You know if somebody's off. I believe we can feel if somebody's got bad intentions, if somebody doesn't really give a shit. And mate, I'm at a point now in my life where I'm not going to just go and date girls just to date girls. I did enough of that in my younger years. It's got to be some substance. There's got to be some realness to it. I don't want to waste anybody's time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, understood. I was going to ask this earlier, but then we sort of dovetailed into slightly different conversation. But there was a question in my mind that I wanted to ask. So, celebrities or people in the public eye, there is, I guess, a bit of a persona that the public have, because they get it through the social media, they get it through TV, they get it through the media, and then they have a vision in their mind what that person's like. So George Best is a phenomenal footballer. That's one sort of hat that he used to wear. Then there's the other side, which was, let's say, the partying, the drinking, the women, etc. But George Best as your dad, what was he like? If you were sitting here right now and I got to talk to him as your dad, is there something you could share with me that, was
You'd
quite...
love him, mate. You'd love him. Witty, charming, charismatic, really, some of his humor was on point. He had this real sharp Northern Irish wit, He could walk in and take over a room, not only because of who he was, but because how he carried himself. I think he was a really charming, good man. He always had time for people. He was always respectful. And one of the things I loved the most about him was his wit. He was really, really on the ball, and he would sit here with you right now and have a great conversation. Sometimes I wish he was around to do that, I sometimes think about, just a random one, like I'm trying to launch this podcast with my mom because I look at her and I love her to bits. She's 71 years old. She's got so much life experience, and I want her to be able to channel it and people to be able to absorb it because it's great info. And I sometimes think I wish my dad was around to share his stories. I wish he was around to share the things he'd go through so people understand what he was going through or what his life was like. It's never the case, but you think about these things sometimes, It's like, I go dark sometimes. I think about, holy shit, how old was he when he died? How far away am I from that age? It's mind-blowing sometimes when you lose a parent young,
Oh, definitely.
To lose a dad when he's 50, whatever, you know what I mean? You think, God, I'm fucking only 10 years away from that. I don't even feel close to unhealthy. I feel the healthiest I've ever felt. And I feel for him, bro. I'm like, damn, I wish you were able to keep going and, and live in, maybe he didn't want to live in this modern time, but have moments on a podcast and share some shit or go do some business with me and we create our own shit. Shit will never happen, but sometimes I'm allowed to live in that fantasy and think of the what ifs, you know what I mean?
Talking about sort of fantasy scenarios as far as football's concerned, today most people would say some of the best footballers in modern years is going to be people like Ronaldo and Messi, and there's always that debate who was the GOAT. If your dad was in his prime today, how would he compete with people like Ronaldo, Messi, or in the Premier League?
I think I'd put this up to your viewer. I think you'd let them comment and see where it stands. But I think you can't take away from anybody's brilliance. Those two, Ronaldo and Messi, are best players in the world, and they've held that for a long time. Someone actually said to me yesterday, I was playing football at Ramsgate for this charity, and someone was like, "Look, the greats of the older day never get knocked off. They're always there. They're just new additions that go to the pile." You know what I mean? And these guys, Messi and Ronaldo, iconic, man. Some of the best footballers who've ever, stats wise, they would probably beat loads of these, but it was just different generations and different what that generation was going through at that time. The certain generation loved Maradona and what he brought to their life at that time. Certain people loved George Best in the late 60s of what he brought at that time. And then now at 2025, it's a different game. It's a different player. It's a different attitude. But they bring that same thing that those guys brought to today's culture. but you put them all together and they'll keep stacking up certain greats. And I think I'm very honored and I'm very proud that my dad is on that list of one of the best players in the world, mate. It's fucking brilliant sometimes when you think about it.
Nice.
Sometimes I wish I could have joined that list. I sometimes have regrets. I grew up playing football in my teens. I started late. I thought I was good, right? And I remember coming to England and looking at somebody who was in my kind of age range, Rooney, and thinking to myself, at 16, I'm playing in a park with my mates thinking I'm brilliant. And Rooney's like playing for the national England team and scoring. You're going, nah, mate, you weren't even close to what you needed to be good, you know? But, mate, as long as I've got 1% of my dad's brilliance on the pitch, I'm happy.
I mean, this is an interesting thing, right? You got athletes, footballers, boxers, whoever, and the dad is brilliant, a bit like yours. And then they have a son who wants to follow the same sort of journey. Do you think that skill is inherited, or do you think it has to be, going back to my phrase, manufactured, and you have to really work on it?
You know what's so funny? I actually think that I was born with something that my dad had, because I had never played football before, and all of a sudden I picked up a ball and I had a skill. I remember being a teenager. I think I was about 11 or 12. But I remember kicking the ball for the first time and being like, ooh, I enjoy this. I'm good at it. So I thought there's got to be some small genetic that came through. But I grew up in the States. Like, football was the 7th sport on the list. You know what I mean? It was American football first, then it was basketball, then it was baseball. I think volleyball was even more important than football where I grew up, you know? But I sometimes wish that I was brought up here and it was a different thing, but it wasn't the case. But yeah, I think some things have got to be genetics, just like being an addict. Some people would say it is in the genes. I would imagine some of the brilliance as well could be in the genes, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Who knows?
Listen, my dad's English and my mum is partly Irish, half Irish. So I've got similar sort of thing running in my blood to you. My mum side, my granddad, I mean, he boozer every single day, functioning though. You know, businessman, had a few businesses, successful, Rolex when he was, younger man, which for someone like that back in the day you never really used to see. Used to have a few shops in Camberwell Green. Just a hustler, really really lovely guy. I do remember him vaguely, and he was called Charlie, and the drinking runs with my mum, and at any occasion. I mean, I think she drinks every single day. She now puts a limit, like she starts at 5 o'clock, and she'll drink all the way through until 1 o'clock in the morning. She's ready to go to bed. She's a black cab driver, and the only time she doesn't drink is when she's working. Yeah. It's completely normal for that side of the family. And I like a drink, and my brother likes a drink, but I also do realise that I can go for it, and if I don't put a break on it, it probably could lead into a big problem. So I think there is some sort of genetic.
Yeah.
There has to be. But part of that addiction actually can be really good, because when I focus on boxing, focusing on myself, business, they say you can't get rid of addiction; you just replace it.
Yeah.
And I do actually agree with that theory. I don't know if you do.
No, I like that. And you are absolutely right. What did you say before there? Some people, some generations, that is the norm for them, having a drink every day. I like a drink as well, mate. We learn, hopefully, how to manage it better than it could be, you know? Because for my old man, for example, it would be a waking up, having a drink all the way through till nighttime every single day. Some people can have 2. Maybe that's not as bad. It's however you manage it, I suppose. But I know that if I chose to, it could go completely fucking wrong, real bad for a very long time. You know what I mean? So I think as we figure it out, it's about managing it the best we understand how, you know? So I'll choose my battles, you could say.
Yeah.
Like you said, you like a drink. I like a drink too. I just have to make sure that I don't do it like I used to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, fair enough.
And what was the last question you asked there?
Addiction is never, you don't get rid of addiction, you replace it.
Yeah. And I like that as well, because that's what it is. You've built this because you're obviously hyper focused on things like building this empire, building this gallery. This will take a lot of work and a lot of thought and a lot of goals and drive. And it's the same. Instead of channeling your energy into fucking being a fuck up, you channeled it into getting shit done. I'm the same way. I clear my mind by going to the gym every day. You know, I clear my mind by sitting, no word of a lie. Every morning I will sit down and I'll write some stuff down. I didn't do that 10 years ago. I'll write down what I need to accomplish, what some long-term goals are. And people will be like, oh, whatever. But those things work. They're known to work, and that's why people speak of them. I might not do that all, you know, for 5 years, but I'll do it in that moment because it makes sense to me. I'll find ways to focus my energy and focus my drive to get shit done, to lead a happier and healthier life and support people around me.
Yeah. So Calum Best, when you wake up in the morning, if you're doing things like this, the podcast and stuff, what does a typical day or routine look like for you?
God, man, I'm such an old man now. I'm in bed by 10 o'clock. I wake up at 6:30. I have a cat. I found this little rescue cat. It's like, it's the craziest life compared to what I used to live, and I'm happy about it. I wake up at 6:30. I sit down. There's supplements I take every single day. I will sit down. I've got this little time box journal that I write in every single morning where I'll write down my goals for the day and a few long-term things, and then I'll write a few things that I'm grateful for. You know, I smile about it, but I'm really into it, this stuff, you know. Okay. I'm really into the bettering of self. I'll write these things down. I'll go check on my site. I've got a restaurant in Chelsea. I'll go check in with my business partners. I'll go to different meetings. I'm really lucky that I don't have a 9 to 5 as such, but I do believe as an entrepreneur and as a businessman, it's all day, every day.
Yeah.
You know, I sat down here with you now, and although I'm focused on this, I'm thinking about what business is going on in my phone and who I need to reply to. And I'm sure entrepreneurs will get that, but I like that I'm able to create my own life by doing a bunch of different shit. It's a good one, you know? So yeah, just to add to that, wake up, get some stuff done in my head of what I need to do, focus on my different businesses, check in with my business partners, get some meetings done. I'll train. Literally, I will make time to train every single day. Big fan of sauna, big fan of recovery, ice baths. Yeah, the whole thing, mate. You know,
yeah,
I'm really into all of it. I find a different sport to play. I'll do some boxing. I'll do this thing called VersaClimb. Every day will consist of some sort of training and some sort of business.
Yeah.
By far.
Brass monkey, ice bath. I've got that indoors. And sunlight and sauna, infrared. I've got a little gym set up indoors. Yeah, it's great. I mean, once you're in the routine of doing that, and also listening to Gary Brecker.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
And he done a very short podcast, 5 or 7 minutes long. It's about breathing and about incorporating that in the morning, like a breathing routine. And I'll tell you what, I didn't realize if you do that breath work, 30 inhale, exhale, really aggressively, then hold and do it 3 times round, it's a game changer because it clears your mind and you've got so much more energy because of it. And then you incorporate the ice bath, you know, you do your gym routine or do a run or do your boxing or whatever. And then overnight, I do the sauna. You do that for a couple of weeks, you are a new man.
Hell yeah. So you understand completely.
Yeah.
Do you find that your viewer or your listener to are like, yeah, fuck off with your breathing and your ice, or do you believe that they are into it with you as well? Because there's so many dudes out there, sadly, that don't quite get this shit. I come across this a lot where people are like, yeah, whatever. When really I'm like, if you want to better yourself, you've got to dabble in a few of these things that are good for you. And I believe training, eating well, recovery, all those things will make you a better human. I feel it as well, you know? So I totally get it.
Definitely. I mean, all this other stuff is, I think people see the surface level stuff. But if you look at like the science, and in short, what you're doing is shocking your body to get a reaction out of it. And when you get a reaction out of it, that can be a really, really life-changing feel-good factor. And look, if you go to the gym once, it doesn't really make a difference. But if you make it a routine and you do it over so many weeks, so many months, that's where the difference is made. The same thing applies to the ice bath. The same thing applies to the sauna. The same thing applies to eating well, or even the breathing techniques. It's all about what you do every single day. You can't lift one weight and think, I want the best body. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
If I could give one bit of advice to anybody that was looking to better themselves, hands down, it's training. Oh, training is one thing that I've consistently done that has made me a better, healthier, happier person.
Makes you focus, makes you certainly a lot more optimistic, a lot more positive, and you just attract better people in your life. If you're boozing, if you're taking drugs, if you're around the wrong people, you just become more unluckier. You attract that person into your life. So I totally resonate with that. So Calum Best, the partier, to Calum Best today, how have you kind of made that transition into the more of the wellness person and business person? And as far as the public profile and your social media following, how have you rebuilt your image?
In some ways, a lot of it is just getting older, mate. In some ways, a lot of it is just, growing up and trying to, and just being more responsible. I think in my younger years, I was a real carefree. I was quite sad. I was quite angry about what I had gone through. And I had a lot of fucking poor me mentality. Sorry, that is a massive part. As soon as I said, no, not poor me, that is life. It's happened. What are you going to do about it? Simple as that.
Taking responsibility.
Literally, as soon as it wasn't like, oh yeah, but this happened. It's like, and I did that for a long time. I sat in that wallowing self-pity shit. And in fairness to me, I was fucked up because I lost my dad, but that could only last for so long. You have to pull yourself out of that. Otherwise, that ends horribly. And that's what happened. I just turned it from, and I'm in no way am I saying I'm some fucking self-help guru. I just got back from Ibiza. I caned it for 3 days. I had a great fucking time. You know what I mean? But at the same time, that will be my little release. And then I'm back. I'm in the gym. I'm working. I've got my new site opening. I've got my new business opening in Dubai. All these things that I want to focus and I want to build to make sure I can provide for my mom. I can provide for myself. I can provide for my future family and friends, whatever it might be. So I've made a transition I'm very, very proud of. I think a big part, like I said, was age. You know what I mean? It was just getting older and realizing you can't do that shit anymore. You've got to give a shit. And then finally, social media. I've been lucky because I've been around for so long. People have seen me go on this journey of lost to understanding, And I think the people that have been with me through it are like, this has been a pretty fucking epic journey. I have a colorful past, and I'm very proud of the man I am today, but also anybody that's new on board, they might not know about my past. Probably better if they fucking don't know about it, but I've lived one hell of a life, brother, and that's not even me going hoorah. That's just me. When I really think about it, I have lived through all sorts of shit over the past however many years, and I am very happy of where it's led me, and I wouldn't take away from any of the lessons. And I've had hell, and I've had good, and I wouldn't take away from any of it because it's made me here.
When you're like in Ibiza, if I was a fly on the wall,
yeah, I won't tell you that story here.
Not in like, the clubs and stuff, but like just eating dinner, hanging out by the pool. What are like, people, what I'm trying to get at is there's uber celebrity type people, really like Ronaldo, right? Probably the most followed person on social media, got ridiculous amount of followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And then he's got this YouTube channel which is completely blown up. And I mean, he is just, he probably can't go anywhere without being kind of harassed. Yeah. And I do think to myself, I don't think I would want that. But it would be nice to have enough of a profile where the doors are open. Then you could go into a restaurant or you could go to this place and get really special service. Who wouldn't want that? You clearly got a big profile. So when you go to a place like Ibiza and you're in a hotel or even in London, what is it like when followers, call it fans, call it people that notice you? How do they interact with you? What's it like?
Well, just to be clear, it's a good question. I don't hold myself in any sort of regard. I'm not silly in knowing that I've been around for a long time. I'm not silly knowing that if I was to go to my charity football game yesterday, if I was going to go to Ibiza, there's interest. People come up and they ask for a photo, or people come up and they say something. I respect it. I admire it. I'm grateful for it. It's definitely not on any level of famous. It's just, they're aware, and it is what it is. And sometimes it's like, it's quite cool. I enjoy it. Some doors open, some things happen. I don't take it for granted. Some people don't want it. Some people don't get it. Some people want it. Who knows what it is? I just know that if Ibiza, for example, I'll go there and I'll go somewhere and people will show interest, and I am grateful that they show interest. So I give them some love back, But one thing I've learned over the years is that with my past, I became very much a people pleaser, and I would always say yes to all people. And a few times it worked against me in not very nice ways. So I've been a bit more self-aware of not always just trying to keep some random happy because they want to do something, because I've got to also protect my shit, But overall, you'll never find a time where I would turn down that. That was one little thing my old man taught me. He'd never say no to anybody, and I've learned to do that. If I'm at football, so for example, yesterday, and there's, let's just say 1,000 people come and watch. This might sound silly, it might sound ridiculous, but I intentionally will make sure I walk around that pitch and stop with everybody that I can and take a little photo and say thank you and nice to meet you and sign some kid's ball or sign some kid's jersey, because it's the least I can do. They've put in the effort to come and respect what I'm doing and support what I'm doing. The least I can do is give back. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's good mentality. So talk about social media. Today it can be a business, right? For many people it is. I know a lot of people got good following and that's their business. And I speak to my dad, who's My mum's 70, in her 70s. Dad, same. And they're old school. They're, my mum's from like Brixton. I'm originally from Tulse Hill. My dad's from East Dulwich. Double glazer when he was younger. They're very, very old school in their mentality. And when I say certain people that I know that make all their revenue from the social media because they build businesses or things off the back end of it, they cannot get their head around it. They think it's crazy. So your profile effectively is your business as well. How do you pick and choose what you say yes and no to now?
Cool. It's got to be aligned with where I'm at in life. It's, what's a good example?
Like, for example, when you go to Ibiza,
Yeah.
is a hotel, for example, reaching out and say, look,
Yes.
we want you there,
Yes.
and I would like to.
And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
You're offering me a hotel room and I'm going to do social media posts, piece of piss, let's do it all day long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And does that come with money as well?
It all depends. Sometimes you will negotiate a deal. So in entertainment, you'd have someone negotiating deals for you, so there's not an awkward conversation between you and a client. Yeah, just like I imagine you would. You'd have a middleman to negotiate the deal. It's the same thing in the entertainment world. So let's just say if I'm going to Ibiza and there's a hotel, there will be a conversation had of if this is only if you want to. You could have a discount or a free hotel if you did some social media posts. For me, I have no problem doing social media posts. It's a piece of piss. I got to get on my phone, take a photo, no problem at all. But nowadays, I'm more aware of who I would want to associate myself with. Whereas in back then, I'd have been like, yeah, cool, whatever. Whereas in now, I'm like, it's got to be aligned with who I am and what I'm about. I wouldn't just take on, a cigarette company because I'm like, I don't want to fucking endorse smoking. I used to be a smoker. I don't smoke anymore. That's not for me, when really some big money would come for that. And I don't want to be turning money down, but I also have worked fucking hard to build up my reputation to be in a credible place when it wasn't so credible years ago. I mean, some people would say it might not be credible now, but I like to think it is. I pick and choose those battles carefully. You know? But at the same time, I got to make some money. I got to provide for my mom. I got to provide for me. So it's a fine line of saying, yes, I want to make sure I have a long-term career, or no, God damn it, I got to pay some rent.
Yeah, fair enough. Random question. Tattoos.
Yeah.
I think they suit you, but they don't suit everybody. I think you got to have a certain personality. And me and my dad debate about it all the time. He said, "You like people with tattoos?" And I said, it has to be on the right person. And I feel when you're a boxer and you're like this tough and you've got this personality, they can pull it off sometimes. I think if you're a certain like model and a certain height and look, you can pull it off sometimes. I think you pulled it off. And I think some certain footballers, but there's other people, I just don't think it works on. And it's their choice, their body, but it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Was it always a thing that you was going to completely do your whole body in tattoos?
Mate, sometimes I wish I hadn't. Sometimes I look and go, it would be so much more classical and original if I didn't have all this shit over me. But it was part of my lifestyle. Where I grew up in Southern California. And for as long as I can remember, this was part of my lifestyle. So I started at a young age. I remember my mom, bless her, she took me to get my first tattoo when I was like 13. She had to sign some paperwork. And from then on out, it was all downhill from there. But I mean, now I'm done. I'm completely covered. But I don't want any more. But it's just part of who I am and what I'm about. But you're absolutely right. Some suit, some don't. I think in your younger years, you don't think about the artist. You just go, yeah, fuck it. And then all of a sudden you realize that there's some of the best artists in the world that are doing these tattoos, so you have to pick and choose carefully. Like this one right here was done by a guy named Norm Will Rise. He was one of the best letter tattoo artists in the world, and he died, bless him. And in some ways it's like, I don't know him well, I don't know his family, but I think to have one of the best artists in the world who passed away, it's in some ways it's pretty cool to
and like even on there, right? I mean, I've seen some people have on their foot. A good friend of mine got it done, and also on the hands. But am I right in saying because it's like quite thin skin now, if you don't kind of look after the healing process, it can actually begin to fade quite quickly?
Yeah, and it falls out. I mean, all my stuff, I've got a few new ones, but they're all quite old. Some of them have been covered, some have been gone over, but it's all just one big hot mess, to be honest, mate. But it was part of my lifestyle, so it is what it is,
Yeah. You reference your mum a lot, and I think most people would agree that your mum and your dad are who they are, and you love them no matter what. I know there's probably some exceptions to that rule, but most people I meet, everyone speaks very, very highly of their mum, even if they're not perfect. But you really seem like you got, and that you're like, they call it a mummy's boy, like a super soft spot. How important has she been in your life?
Massively, and the reason I think about that is because I know how much it means to her, and it's relevant to me. Like, look, at the end of the day, it's not all day, every day, but I find myself sometimes when we want to talk about a backstory of my life, that's a huge part of it. So I'm consciously aware if we're going on about my dad and what he did, I want to make sure that she gets some credit where she deserves it, you know? Even if it's not a question, I'm aware of it because, you know, if you think that we had, or if I think that I had it tough dealing with my old man sometimes, she had it tough dealing with him and fucking me. You know what I mean? You can imagine what that poor woman went through dealing with me and my old man. So credit where credit's due. Look, moms are pain in the asses. I know it. So sometimes it's like, can you drop me out? But at the same time, I wouldn't change it. And hand on heart, a lot of my drive for success is to make sure I can take care of her.
I was going to ask you that question. So, like, she's your mum and a bit of a rock, and also a friend to you. And is that really the motivation for you to be fit and healthy for her as well as yourself, and to be a good business person, but also for her?
Yeah. Well, the drive is to just be the best person I can as a whole for me. I've learned that like we will be the only people to make these things happen, but there's a nature that I have that I'm proud of to want to provide a value for others. And I think a lot of that was built through my charity work with NACOA, where we told you about for the children. But there's this thing of wanting to make sure, you know, my old dear is all I have left when it comes to family. And I just want to make sure that I can do the best I can. And look, I want to be successful because of my own fucking ego, I'm sure. But it's also to provide for friends and family. The kind of person where if we're all going out for dinner, I want to take care of it all. Not in a piss-taking way where people are thinking, oh, let's rinse him. I am choosing to want to be a provider for people, you know?
I mean, when I was younger, I'm not super old, but I'm old enough now. I've got 2 kids, got wife and stuff, and they always say the best feeling is not actually when you receive these gifts and receive the stuff, is when you actually pay for stuff or open doors for people, and you give them the opportunity or a good feeling or a gift or you know, an experience. And it is amazing. Like you do something and they go like, thanks. And you really feel that's the gift back to you. Yeah. And it's an amazing feeling.
I'm a massive fan of what you said there. I completely agree. I remember not that long ago, I did this talk at some theater, South London, and it was like a man's day. Yeah. So there was like 4 dudes on a panel, me being one of them, and there was like 1,000 people in the audience. And somebody asked the question. Some people might not agree with this, and I've debated this a lot, but I believe in it. Some kid in the question stood up and he said, you know, I'm struggling to figure out what to do business or where to go in my life or what my next steps are. And I was like, you know what helped me massively was providing a service for others. And once I provided a value in my charity, it changed my life. So I was like, do something for somebody else with a real intention to want to provide for that person. And no word of a lie, I'm a spiritual man. I believe in this shit. The universe will say, we see you giving, here's something for you. I believe that's how that shit works, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think, what's the old saying? Be the energy you want to see in the world, because it comes back, right?
I like it.
Whatever you purport, it just comes back around. And sometimes you don't even realize it's come back around until you reflect on it.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I've done that, and this is now
come back.
sort of the knock-on effect of it.
Yeah.
And equally, you do something bad,
shit's coming right back
that's
around.
that shit coming back round.
I'm a big believer.
I'm very, very much into that. Here's my last question.
Cool.
And this question I asked to every single podcast guest. When I set up the podcast, the Stephen Sully Study, I thought at the time there was a guy who got me involved in the world of podcasting. There was a guy called Rob Moore. And there was a lot of podcasts that had quotes. And I thought, don't know if I'm going to do it. But then I thought, what resonates with me? What makes a lot of sense? And the quote goes like this, and it's kind of a mantra for every single day. Be happy, never content. Now that seems like a conflicting message, but in my opinion, it's not. Now I can give you my interpretation of it.
Please.
But I'm here to ask Calum Best, what is your interpretation of be happy, never content?
Ooh, don't settle. Don't get too comfortable in it. You know, be happy with what it is, but don't go too comfortable in what it is. That's my take on it.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Look, I really enjoyed getting to know you.
Can I give you a quote? Oscar Wilde, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. It means no matter how much you fucked up, there's still an opportunity to make it better. It means no matter how much far gone or how good you are, you still might have had a past.
I've actually heard and read that quote, and I think it's a very, very, very powerful quote. And I think, you know, when like some people say, oh, I'm a bit too old and I can't go to the gym, or I haven't been financially successful, whatever it is, it's never too late, man. It's never too late.
Completely agree, brother.
You know, just to focus and jump on it. But look, pleasure connecting with you, mate. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Good man, me
Thank
too.
you for your time. And see if we can do some business.
Good man.
All right.
Enjoyed that, brother.
Thanks, Calum.
Thank you,
Cheers,
mate.
mate.
Thank
Cool.
you.